All right, guys. So, unfortunately, we got to have one of these conversations once again about a mass shooting that happened at an elementary school out in Uvalde, Texas, that has resulted in the deaths of 21 people, 19 kids, elementary school kids, and 2 adults. I'm not going to lie. Before I even turned on the camera, I cried about this, okay? I definitely shed some tears over this one because I was just reading about it and watching some of the videos and the families, looking for their kids, not knowing whether or not they're dead or alive. Again, it hurts me to my core, right? It hurts me in my soul. And, I'm just saying that because, if I start to tear up while talking about this, just understand that this stuff is tough to talk about, right? So with that being said, let's just go ahead and get into the news clip so that you guys can get the updates on the latest from this situation. And then we're going to get into some of the reactions from some people in the media, some people on social media, because I hate the politicization of these tragic incidences, man. But it happens every single time. It is rinse and repeat. And it seems like we can't really move forward any solutions because of the politicization of these deaths that are happening in this country that come for these tragic events done by these very, very, very evil, sick people that commit these acts of violence. But before we get in that, let's put up some pictures of some of the victims, these poor children that lost their lives during this tragic incident, because I want to make sure, they get recognized and people can see their faces, before I really get into this. And again, my thoughts and prayers are with the families of these victims, as I just can't imagine something like this happening. If I had a child, you try to send them to school and you think they're safe there, and that just seems not to be the case in this country, unfortunately. So without further ado, let's just get into the news clip so you guys can get the latest on this situation.
In our nation's capital, flags there and all across this country, in many cases lowered to half staff after something that has now become all too common in this country, yet another school shooting. We thank you for your time and for being with us tonight. I'm Doug Dunbar.
I'm Nicole Baker. We start tonight mourning the 21 lives lost after a shooting inside of a South Texas elementary school.
Since we last left you at 6 o'clock this evening, Texas Department of Public Safety has confirmed even more deaths.
So the school, Robb Elementary in Uvalde, where just under 600 second through fourth graders were in school, is about an hour and a half just outside of San Antonio. It's a smaller community there of a little more than 24,000 people.
And at 10 o'clock, new information. The death toll has risen in the last few hours. 19 students now who were second, third, and fourth graders all lost their lives today. 2 adults also killed. There are others injured, but at this time, the exact numbers have not been confirmed on the injury side. We do know that the 66-year-old grandmother of the shooter was one of the victims, and 2 law enforcement officers were also injured.
Here's what we know about the suspect, 18-year-old Salvador Ramos. CBS News law enforcement sources confirm he was armed with a handgun and an AR-15 rifle with high-capacity magazines. Sources also confirm that the shooter was wearing body armor. Police tell CBS 11 he lived in Uvalde, and the shooter hid behind a barricade and exchanged fire with law enforcement officers on the scene there. We know he was eventually shot and killed, and investigators say they do believe he was alone in this.
And at this point, here's what we know regarding the timeline through the day today. The shooter abandoned his truck. It was right outside the school, then made his way inside the building. That happened at 11:32. Uvalde School District then put out their first alert to the public. That was at 12:17. A little less than an hour later, 1:06, police confirming the suspect had been apprehended. At that time, though, we didn't know he'd been killed. Then more than 2 hours later, Governor Greg Abbott confirming the first deaths in the case. In the hours since, lawmakers on both sides of the aisle we've seen through the night calling for a lot of change. And while they certainly may disagree on what needs to be done, they all seem to agree that something has to change.
We are seeing way too many of these horrific mass murders, and we need to devote far more law enforcement resources to stopping violent criminals, to preventing these kind of absolute acts of evil.
Nowhere else do parents have to talk to their kids, as I have had to do, about why they got locked into a bathroom and told to be quiet for 5 minutes just in case a bad man entered that building. Nowhere else does that happen except here in the United States of America, and it is a choice.
All right, guys. So as you can see there, yeah, that's just it's tough, right? It's really tough. to see this type of tragedy happen in this country. Now, for more information, I've been reading about apparently this sick, evil person. He acquired the guns legally. Okay, when he turned 18, he went and purchased the guns from a federal arm dealer. So it doesn't look like he actually got the guns illegally. He shot and killed his grandma before doing this, which to me indicates that he probably had some mental issues going on. I also read about some text messages that allegedly belonged to him, or some Instagram messages that he had exchanged with people before this, kind of indicating that, you know, this person, again, had some issues going on. And there's a lot more information that needs to come out about his exact motive. But with that being said, that has not stopped people from politicizing this incident, right? Because every time this happens, for whatever reason, you have people that will come out here and will blame the Republican Party for it. As you can see here on Twitter, hashtag Republicans are the problem is trending. Well, why is it trending? Well, because it's an easy way to get retweets and likes. We don't even know the motive, okay, of the shooter or why this happened. We have no clue whatsoever. We're still learning information. It's not like the last shooting in Buffalo where it was clear that that guy was a white supremacist, okay, and I'm not afraid to say that. And he went out there and committed that act of violence based off race, okay? And I think he probably was radicalized by some other things that he probably heard in mainstream liberal media, but they don't really want to talk about that. But with that being said, we don't know all that much information about this guy yet, okay? But again, without that information, they're saying Republicans are the problem. And with that being said, I want you guys to watch this meltdown from Sink Yogurt of TYT, in which he blames Republicans for these kids dying in this absolutely insane rant. Take a look.
If you say, hey, we don't need any gun control, as all lunatic right-wingers say, you're all lunatics, okay? So, all right, then what about RPGs? Okay, no gun control, no arms control. It says right to bear arms in the Second Amendment. Should we give everybody an RPG, a shoulder-fired missile, so that, oh, but you said, well, don't do that. I mean, there's crazy people. You remember that guy at work? Oh my God, that guy at the post office. There's a little crazy, right? I mean, you can't walk around with shoulder-fired missiles. Why not? We walk around with assault rifles that cut down 14 kids before anybody can respond. You love that if you're against gun control. You love that. Don't tell me you don't want RPGs. And by the way, if you're a Republican, secretly, you know right now in your head, you're thinking, boy, I'd love an RPG. Okay, well, then let's extend that argument further. Why don't we give everyone a small nuclear device? What? You don't want any control, right? Freedom, your freedom. Let's just nuke each other. Let's just nuke each other, right? And then go, oh, which one's the cause? I wonder what's the cause. The cause is there's a lot of unstable people in the world. If you give them all of the weapons that we have, they will use it against us and our kids. Dumb. I'm so sick of it. I'm supposed to not call them stupid. They're murdering our kids with weapons that you allow them to have for no goddamn reason. Okay, dumb, what do you want them to have, nukes? You probably do. If you're a right winger, you're probably that stupid that you'd be like, oh, just give them nukes. Who cares? Let them murder all of our kids at once. Because I don't want any gun control. I have a hobby I masturbate to called guns. And I don't care if it kills your kids. That's what you say.
Now, I think it goes without saying, just like the Buffalo shooting, this mass shooting as well, too, involving these elementary school kids or any mass shooting. I don't think any Republicans or conservatives are happy to see this, right? I think most conservatives / Republicans are looking at this and saying this is horrible, okay? And that we need solutions to stop this from happening in our country, right? I think that's what most people are saying, okay? However, I don't think that we can come together and find any solutions when you have people on the left that are just flat out calling Republicans stupid and dumb and saying that we're happy to see something like this happen when that's just simply not the case, right? Just because a lot of conservatives and Republicans feel strongly about our constitutional right to carry. And what I find to be fascinating about this is that these same people are silent when people are murdered every single day from gun violence in these big liberal cities like Chicago, New York, Los Angeles. This happens all around the country every single day. Cities that are run by progressive, woke Democrats who allow criminals to run the city, okay? They don't come out here and say Democrats are the problem, right? They don't blame the Democrat Party. They ignore it, right? They ignore it. Again, but when a mass shooting like this happens, and what we think of as a classic mass shooting, right? A gunman goes into some public place and just open fires. When that happens, it's always Republicans' fault. Either because the shooter is white, right? In cases where the shooter is white, doesn't matter what their actual political ideology is, just because he's white, it's going to be the Republicans' fault. And if he's not white, then it's the Republicans' fault because of gun control. And because these people have a hive mind mentality, they come out here and advocate for more gun control, despite the fact that we see mass shootings every single day across this country, again, in liberal cities that have very, very, very strict gun laws. And in fact, we've seen in some instances like Buffalo, in which the shooter is motivated by the fact that there are strict gun laws in some of these areas, because they know that they can get away with committing these acts of violence and there won't be any real resistance because of the strict gun laws, right? But that doesn't stop people like Steve Kerr from coming out here and speaking on this issue, an issue that he really doesn't know what he's talking about, and to advocate for the leftist solution to this problem.
I'm not going to talk about basketball. Nothing's happened with our team in the last 6 hours. We're going to start the same way tonight. Any basketball questions don't matter. Since we left shoot-around, 14 children were killed 400 miles from here, and a teacher. And in the last 10 days, we've had elderly black people killed in a supermarket in Buffalo. We've had Asian churchgoers killed in Southern California. And now we have children murdered at school. When are we going to do something? I'm tired. I'm so tired of getting up here and offering condolences to the devastated families that are out there. I'm so tired of I'm tired of the moments of silence. Enough. There's 50 senators right now who refuse to vote on H.R. 8, which is a background check rule that the House passed a couple of years ago. It's been sitting there for 2 years. And there's a reason they won't vote on it, to hold on to power. So I ask you, Mitch McConnell, I ask all of you senators who refuse to do anything about the violence and school shootings and supermarket shootings, I ask you, are you going to put your own desire for power ahead of the lives of our children and our elderly and our churchgoers? Because that's what it looks like. It's what we do every week. So I'm fed up. I've had enough. We're going to play the game tonight, but I want every person here, every person listening to this, to think about your own child or grandchild or mother or father or sister, brother. How would you feel if this happened to you today? We can't get numb to this. We can't sit here and just read about it and go, well, let's have a moment of silence. Yeah, go Dubs, you know. Come on, Mavs, let's go. That's what we're going to do. We're going to go play a basketball game. And 50 senators in Washington are going to hold us hostage. Do you realize that 90% of Americans, regardless of political party, want background check, universal background check? 90% of us, we are being held hostage by 50 senators in Washington who refuse to even put it to a vote, despite what we, the American people, want. They won't vote on it because they want to hold on to their own power. It's pathetic. I've had enough.
Yeah, that all sounds good when you're trying to get likes and admiration from the liberal media, right? But the reality of the situation is that, just like in Buffalo, this guy right here purchased these weapons legally a day after his 18th birthday, in which he had to undergo a background check. So that background check did nothing to stop him from committing this act of violence. But, you know, the Democrats are going to go and force a vote on this legislation that would not have prevented this shooter from getting access to weapons. So what do they actually want? Well, what they really actually want is to say, hey, you know what? We want to just, you know, ban rifles, right? That's what they want to do. Even though most gun violence in this country is not committed with so-called assault rifles, they're actually committed with handguns. But again, they're going to virtue signal about that and act like banning assault rifles is a solution. And they probably want to go a lot further than that. That's actually what they really want. Okay, but they come out here and they virtue signal about the whole background check thing, even though they know that that doesn't really stop anybody from committing these horrible acts of violence, right? So with that being said, some of you guys are probably like, okay, well, what is your solution, right? What are you advocating for? Are you advocating to do nothing? No, I'm not. What I'm actually advocating for is for, instead of these politicians, Republicans and Democrats, to be quite honest with you, instead of spending $40 billion on Ukraine, if we're going to spend $40 billion, why are we not spending $40 billion to protect our children? Why in the world is not every single school in America, especially elementary schools, armed to the teeth, okay, with police outside of the entrance, where there's only one way to get into the school, okay, and everybody is checked thoroughly before actually going into a school, okay? Why don't we have that? Now, in this situation right here, to be fair, allegedly, this person, the shooter, crashed his vehicle near the school, and when he got out of the vehicle, he had on body armor and his weapon, and he was engaged by law enforcement. Apparently, again, he exchanged fire with law enforcement, but somehow was still able to make his way into school. Now, with that being said, I got questions about that story, because if law enforcement was doing their jobs, which is to put their lives on the line to save these kids. Again, I wasn't there. I don't know for sure. I'm just saying, this sounds strange. Why in the world was this shooter not killed? Or why wasn't one of these law enforcement officers not killed? Okay, because if they're exchanging gunfire with this guy and he's trying to make his way into this school, I don't understand how somebody didn't get killed during that exchange. Now, I can understand if the gunman got out and he killed the law enforcement officers. Okay, then I kind of get it, right? I understand. But that's not what happened. He exchanged gunfire with them, but nobody was killed during that exchange. I find that to be strange, okay? But with that being said, yeah, we need guys that are not afraid to put their lives on the line to protect these children. If we got to pay them a handsome salary to do that, then we got to do it. Because if we got $40 billion to send to Ukraine, again, I'm pretty sure we got the money to protect our kids in this country. Right? I'm pretty sure that we do. And then there's the mental health aspect of this, okay? Because obviously this person, had some issues, okay? Again, I was reading about some of the text messages that had been exchanged, some interactions that people that knew of him or knew him had with him. The guy definitely seemed to have some problems, right? The elevator definitely did not go all the way to the top floor. And this guy definitely should have had a mental health evaluation before this, okay? That definitely should have happened. And I think with that being said, there has to be serious investment in this country in regards to mental health services, okay? Because if we're going to have a country where, we're going to protect people's rights to bear arms, we have to make sure that we have people that are mentally stable that are carrying these weapons, okay? Because, again, people that are mentally unstable that are getting access to some of these weapons, I'm not necessarily sure if that's something that we should be promoting and allowing in this country, right? And that means that the Republican Party has to get serious about this, because the Republican Party talks about this all the time when there's a mass shooting, okay? But they have to actually propose and put forward some serious legislation that is going to expand some of the mental health services in this country, whether that be through the private sector or whatever. We got to do what we got to do. But the most immediate solution, in my opinion, that both sides of the aisle should be able to come to an agreement on, okay, whether you're Republican or Democrat, is investing in more security at these schools, okay? Whether that be more armed guards or maybe even a lockdown system in school in which, hey, if somebody happens to get past the first line of defense, which should be the armed guards, which honestly, that shouldn't even be possible, right? That shouldn't even be possible. But if they happen to do so, there has to be like some automatic lockdown system that we have where these doors are automatically locked, okay, and that kids are rushed out of the hallways or whatever. Like, there has to be some system in place that can mitigate the damage that these shooters cause, right? And I think that's what we have to have here. Again, I don't understand how this shooter even got into school, because I know even my local school, I can't just walk into a school, right? I gotta ring the doorbell, okay, and somebody has to actually let me in before I can even get into the school. Okay, there's no armed security outside the school, but again, the door is not open for anybody to just walk in, right? So I don't understand how this guy engaged with law enforcement outside of the school and the doors weren't locked before the guy could even get into the school. I really don't understand that. That to me really kind of blows my mind. Okay, it really does. But again, with that being said, we got to put forward some solutions, and I'm sick and tired of the bickering and the arguing between Republicans and Democrats instead of coming together and just passing some legislation to get it done. Because when it comes to Ukraine and all the other things, the wars that they want to fund, they're totally fine with that. They can, for whatever reason, they can work together to do that. Or bailing out Wall Street, okay? They can work together to do that type of stuff. But they cannot work together to protect our children in this country, and that's what frustrates me about politics. Okay, I'm sick and tired of the bickering, the back and forth, the blaming each other, and I want more cooperation. Because again, I think that there is a solution that can be politically viable for both sides to protect kids in this country in these schools, right? I don't understand how either side can disagree with having more armed security, having more systems in place to make it damn near impossible for anybody to commit this type of violence in this country at our schools. I don't care how much you got to spend. I don't care, okay? We got the money to do it for a whole bunch of other stuff. Why don't we have the money to do it for this? Why are we not investing in this? It'll create a lot of jobs at the very least. Even if 99.999% of them never have to do anything, I don't care. I don't care. I want it in place as an insurance policy, and that's what we should do in this country. I'm sick and tired of the politics. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.